2,
9.
Witness the power of this fully armed and operational battle station. Welcome, one and all. Paul Preston here, the movie guys, with you. Alongside me,
Sean Blodgett.
the mighty Sean Blodgett, who comes to us. We've worked together many times in various wacky venues.
Yes.
Now the owner of a production company.
Yes. Creative Motion Entertainment. We've been around for 10 years. We deliver Hollywood-style cinematic images at a fraction of the cost.
There you go. And we are in the middle of Hollywood, in Burbank. Middle of Hollywood. Sean and I both have production companies, so we figured, hey, we love Star Wars, we love production companies, so here we are.
There it is.
And the Mighty Admirals Club in Burbank, California, where you may now behold the ultimate power of the Countdown to 9 podcast. This is going to be your monthly check-in for how much closer we are to Star Wars Episode 9. And as of this taping, Sean, it's 44 weeks and 6 days.
I'm so excited. I can't wait.
That sounds better than 308 days, which is the same thing.
Yes.
Both are correct. 44 weeks sounds better, smaller number. Oh, God, that just sounds like a long time, too. What are we doing, Sean? We're already talking about Star Wars?
Well, we're already talking about Star Wars. I mean, I brought this idea to you because I'm a huge fan, and I wanted to jump in early in the year before we actually get to that time where it's about to be released and take a moment and review the films and talk about why we love them, maybe why you hate them, maybe why you're frustrated by them, but you know, the phenomenon that they are.
We will bring you film recaps of all the movies made up till now in the Star Wars universe, analysis, opinions, interviews, guests, jokes, Ugnaughts, Panthers, Porgs, Raftars. There's a lot to go through, and you to get you fully prepared to take in what we imagine is the finale of George Lucas's imagined triple trilogy,
Yes.
or nonagon, or whatever you want to call it, of movies. It was all originally supposed to come to 9, right?
Well, I mean, that was the significance, at least for me, this idea of, wait a second, they're about to do number 9. This is what we were always promised. I remember being a kid and thinking, oh my God, there's going to be 9 movies. And so there's a lot of, there's videos on the internet that talk about, he was going to do 9 and he wasn't going to do 9. And then there's like literal interviews of him saying, I'm never doing 7, 8, 9. And then, and then of course Disney buys it and of course it's going to happen. So, at least in my mind, it was always, once the prequels were done, for me, I always had hoped that he was going to finish it.
Did he? Yeah, so that's interesting. I think I heard that, or maybe I just wanted it when I was young and thought I heard it.
Yeah.
There's going to be 100 of them, right?
I actually remember writing in, I think it was like 7th grade, some story about that I was going to be a writer on one of the Star Wars movies, and that was where I was headed, and of course that part didn't happen
Not
yet.
yet.
Oh, not yet. Not yet. Yeah.
As ever, we encourage interaction, so please chime in at themovieguys.net, at countdown9@gmail.com, or on social media, which includes facebook.com/countdown9, at countdown9 on Twitter and Instagram as well. Pipe in, yell at us, agree with us, or at least me.
Yeah.
Next week, we'll kick off things proper with a full show dedicated to Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That's the beginning chronologically.
Yep.
After that, we continue in the Star Wars universe chronologically once a month with full shows covering Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, then Solo, a Star Wars story, then Rogue One, a Star Wars story, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi.
Boy, that escalated quickly. That really got out of hand.
Yeah, which is true. The Jedi Returns 2 movies later, well, he's the last one.
Well, in defense of that movie, which we'll get to later, but in defense of that movie, time had passed. And there were...
Yes.
There were good times. He even says there were good times.
Yes.
In
real time,
for a while there was balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in real time and in their universe, in both universes.
Right.
Ours and theirs.
Right.
Time passed.
Right.
Much time passed.
Yes, yes.
But,
Which, by the way, I liked when you were reading the list that when you got to the original Star Wars film, not Episode 1, the original Star Wars film, you just said Star Wars.
I'm not that guy who says Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Sorry.
Right.
It's Star Wars.
Yes.
Not A New Hope.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you go with the head of the scroll of each movie, then that's accurate. But
Right.
they didn't, and I'm not going to.
Right.
But let's go back to the beginning of our chronological time in space. Sean and I are going to guide you through these. Look at the 10 major theatrical releases. We're not going to cover Clone Wars or extended canon or anything. So you know what our deal is. Let's trace our relationship with these legendary movies. So Sean, how did you first see Star Wars? A New Hope.
Okay, how did I first see Star Wars? The story goes that I was 2, and my mom took me to the movies to see it, and I looked at the big screen and I said, "Turn off that big TV." That's. I don't actually have a memory of it, but my actual Star Wars memories start with The Empire Strikes Back, which I have a huge love and fond of in terms of just a film itself, but also as a Star Wars film, I think it's the greatest of the lot. So,
I was 7 and I saw it in the theater. My dad took me, and I didn't know anything. I'm like going to see Pete's Dragon or whatever, Fox and the Hound. That was after that. But those type of movies are what I'm going to see as a kid. And suddenly, my dad's like, "We're going to go down to the Oneonta Theater in upstate New York. It's a beautiful, gorgeous former vaudeville stage, but now is a theater, big echoey space,
right?
But huge screen. I sat down, had popcorn. I was there with my dad, and suddenly, I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine? I just was like, duh. Mouth on the floor, fell in love with Han Solo. I mean, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And if you're, we were fortunate for our age to have Star Wars as a big screen experience, even Empire.
Yeah.
Because we were seeing an advance in technology we'd never seen before either.
Yep.
A kid who grows up now knows anything can happen in the movies.
Right.
We didn't know that.
Yeah, anything can happen on their iPhone.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
there's
And their watch, their Apple Watch is amazing. Blowing Dick Tracy out of the water.
Yeah.
But for us, certainly it's I had seen nothing like that before.
Yeah.
And then moving on to Empire, I was still so young. I'm like, Han Solo's dead. No, he's not. He's frozen. He's dead. They explained it. I watch Empire now. I go, they fully explained everything is going to happen. They're going to freeze him and take him to Jabba.
Right.
But I went, I didn't know what's going on.
That's so interesting because, I didn't really have a ton of memories of A New Hope. I think I went back and saw it after I was watching, The Empire Strikes Back. And having that linear feeling of what that must have been like. For me, it was just Empire, and so that's interesting.
Yeah, well, after that, you go out, you get the storybooks. Back, you're not watching that movie again until it's back in theaters.
Right.
Of course, it's in theaters for a year.
For a long time. I remember seeing it in the theater, Empire anyway. I remember seeing it in the theater. I don't know how many times. I feel like it was like 10 times at least. Yeah. And then back in the day, of course, this is way before the internet and all of that stuff. I remember we got some bootleg copies of Empire and Star Wars, which may have been where I actually saw Star Wars on Betamax, because we had a Betamax player, and and you actually had to change the tape because it was too long for the tape. But I remember watching it over and over and over again.
Yeah, or you just get the storybook and you read that, or you get the albums that sort of do the audio.
Oh my God,
narration of everything.
I have so many fond memories of those albums, and yeah.
Yeah, but I remember specifically it was a few years later after Raiders of the Lost Ark that I think I was old enough to come home and just be completely agog at what I saw.
Yes.
Star Wars was a lot, and over time I loved everything, but I knew by 11 that the filmmaking I saw was just as impressive as the fantasy place I'd been taken to when I saw Raiders. Then I went back and reappreciated all of Star Wars as well. By then I was like Joe Movie guy.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life.
It was one of the things that I mean, I love all the technology. I love where it's gone. I mean, it's very exciting that the proliferation of everything, and people are, making these amazing videos. I mean, just on YouTube, you see stuff and it's like, oh my God, this is incredible. 15, 20 years ago, this one 10-second video would have cost, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000. Now it's some kid in a basement doing like, hey guys, this is my YouTube video. I'm telling you how to do all these explosions and stuff. And it's like, but back then when you watched all the behind the scenes and you're seeing all that and you're seeing this technology, you're just, enthralled, amazed. I also for a very long time felt like lightsabers had to be real. Even though I had watched the behind the scenes, I kept going, there's got to be something. And I kept looking at like tube lights and stuff, and I'm like, maybe it's that. And they fire it up. There's something, right?
Now we have Neil deGrasse Tyson to come along and take a crap on all that. Right. Well, if it's light, it clearly cannot be bound by something that you can physically tap. Get out of here, Neil.
Yeah. That's not
just
what
doing that for a goof.
Yeah.
But yeah. So today, I suppose you could grow up with Harry Potter, and have a similar sort of.
I think the Harry Potter thing is big for. I didn't grow up with it. I haven't even read all the books. I haven't even seen all the films. My daughter is in the midst of reading one of the books right now, and she's starting to really fall in love with it. And I've read a few of them. And now I go, oh, okay, I start to get this, but because you didn't grow up with it, it just doesn't have that. For me, it doesn't have that same feel.
They put out 10 films in half the time, so if nothing else, they win for being prolific.
True that, yo.
Two Fantastic Beasts and a bunch of Hogwarts adventures.
Right? Yeah.
So why are these movies so meaningful?
To me or in general?
Well, to both. Because in general, we don't talk about Annie Hall quite like we talk about Star Wars. Same year, Annie Hall won Best Picture. Star Wars has become a cultural phenomenon. Why is that, Sean? Explain that to everybody in a sentence. It's not a big question or anything.
People who need... I don't know. It's a big question. I think...
Because Lucas would have been laughed out of town. Here's the director of American Graffiti saying, I got a space opera for you. And
let's face it, he was on set. When you see all the behind-the-scenes stuff and you hear about what the crew and everybody else that was working on it were like, this is what is this crazy robot that making all this sound? And what are they doing? And even if you look at some of the outtakes, you can tell there were moments where there was discovery happening. I think there was some time on set where they were like, is this? Are there moments where this is going to go funnier than we think? Ultimately, thank God, Lucas and his wife at the time, they edited the film and made it what it became, what it is. But
there's like 20 minutes with no dialogue.
Yeah,
just Jawas and droids making noise, in the desert.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, it's interesting
people
too.
Would want to see it.
Like, now, in comparison to movies now. Star Wars at the time was like fast driving, hard. That movie was moving. Mm-hmm. But now, if you go back and look at it, it doesn't drive. Although I will say I have a new love for it. If you watch Rogue One and then watch Star Wars, that first 20 minutes is way more exciting. It was already pretty cool, but it's pretty damn exciting thinking about where we just came from and continuing on. Although it's a little strange in that now it also changes. Now we have 2 Star Wars films that actually do start back to back, aside from Last Jedi and Force Awakens. There's 2 sets of them now.
Well, I'll contend that one of the reasons it succeeds is that it's at heart a 70s movie.
Yeah.
Lucas is coming out of the whole team with Coppola and De Palma and Scorsese and making these meaningful 70s movies. And that's
right.
Even though it's a space adventure, that's what it is at heart. It's a hero's journey encapsulated in a solid script with all, littered with interesting characters and moving at a pace that's more like a 70s movie.
Right.
And so if you don't like 70s movies, surprise, you do. Star Wars.
Yeah.
If you're like, I don't like the 70s movies, man. They're dumb and I like, effects and stuff and I like Marvel and everything.
Right.
No, you do like 70s movies because you like Star Wars.
Right. And Star Wars is ultimately why any of those movies really exist in this day and age. It was the start of something.
And it not just started, it kickstarted a cultural revolution.
Yep.
An industry revolution as well.
Also a spiritual revolution, by the way. There were people that got into the Force.
Yeah.
In a big way. Yeah.
Yeah, you could say it's a take on religions, and religions have taken off of it.
Absolutely.
In its wake.
Yeah.
I
like the exploration of where Lucas went with the Force. I like where Disney is going with the Force and the astral projection and things like that. I mean, they're pushing things to.
Sorry, the word midi-chlorians just crossed my mind, and you probably saw that.
Well,
you probably saw it in my face.
I know we're not going to delve into any of the cartoons, and I didn't get a ton into the cartoons. I do like Star Wars Rebels, but there was a short series on the Clone Wars that goes into the Wills, and if you ever have seen any of the original scripts of Star Wars, it's oh god, I forgot the full name, but it's something like Luke Starkiller and the Journey of the Wills or something like that. And ultimately, I think he was going to tie the midichlorians into the Wills, which are sort of like these spiritual beings. That there was this sort of ultimate connectivity that that comes down, and ultimately, the midichlorians are part of us, and then it's it's a whole thing. So
Yoda was supposed to have a big Will's adventure.
He does.
Right?
He does in the Clone Wars anime. It was like a bonus season or bonus part of the Clone Wars. Yeah.
Should I watch those?
I haven't. I didn't love the Clone Wars. I know a lot of people love the Clone Wars animated series. It didn't speak to me, but I happened to find that bonus, those few episodes, and I loved what that had to say. I thought that was superbly interesting and explained a lot of stuff.
I hope we didn't lose a bunch of viewers just now in saying that we don't watch or deal with the.
We
Clone
absolutely
Wars.
did, because there are people that friggin' love.
I hope
that
instead
series.
they tell me why I should watch it, and then I will. Why? Because
Yeah.
I'll watch the movie.
Right.
I'm a movie guy. I'll
Right.
watch the Clone Wars movie. I may not have time to watch the whole TV series.
The Clone Wars movie, I really didn't like. Now, people
oops.
liked
All right,
the
well, there
Clone
goes that.
Wars. People liked the People liked the Clone Wars series, which I think people enjoyed more than the movie. But I haven't seen enough of it to know how much it all.
All right,
blends
so
together
I'll put
and
it all on the
stuff. So,
table. If anyone
yeah,
wants to tell me
yeah.
what I should watch,
You should check out Rebels. I really like Rebels. I think that was. I think they did that right. I think Rebels they did right.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And of course, as far as the industry goes, Star Wars changed the game entirely to where now Industrial Light and Magic and Skywalker sound are embedded in high-tech arena movies.
Yep.
I mean, everything.
They touch everything. I mean, almost everything. I mean, and they were the start of everything. I mean, the whole thing is foundational. And one of the things that we're going to get into that I find interesting is, as the technology got better, as the technology progressed, say what you will about the prequels, whether you like them, hate them, whatever. The prequels are superbly important cinematic pieces of work, because that technology that was developed to do the prequels changed how we do movies now.
Yeah, we had the stained glass creature from Young Sherlock Holmes. We had the water creature from The Abyss, but we had never had a fully CGI interactive character who was plot important and interacted with the main human character.
Yeah,
as well.
And since we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit, but who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, whether you hate or love Jar Jar Binks, although I love the Sith theory of Jar Jar Binks, which is so much fun to watch.
Oh,
have you not
want to
seen
hear
it?
that now?
Oh my God, you have to see it.
Certainly,
If
we bring
you
it up
haven't
next
seen
week.
It's absolutely
Or next
brilliant.
month.
But the actual CG of him and what they did with his character was really amazing. And Lucas is very good at detail. I think that's really where he shines is knowing the details. And we're going to get into more of that. But I mean, where I think I don't love what he has to say in terms of maybe some of the screenwriting or the direction specifically with actors. I think that's where some of that starts to fall apart for specifically the prequels. And I think that's ultimately why Empire, out of all of them, I think to this day is still the greatest of all of them, because Irvin Kershner just he nailed it, and he really made it about. He wasn't making a science fiction film, he was making a fairy tale, and if you ever see any, there's a lost behind the scenes that I found on YouTube that was it was very interesting. It was like probably the BBC or something like that, and I had never seen it before. I recently saw it. And it's really cool because you really get this sense. I mean, it's all the stuff of them in the snow, so they're all miserable. And I mean, like the film is freezing, and you really see all of this, like how they made this film. And he's really working with the actors, and he really cares about story, and he really cares about this arc. And there were a couple of times where the documentarian was sort of pushing him and saying, that this is a science fiction film, and he was like, no, this is this is a fairy tale. This is fantasy. And I think that that's a superbly important distinction when we're talking about Star Wars versus really anything else.
Yeah, science fiction would be taking science, Earth science, to a new level.
Right.
And fantasies is completely taking you to an entirely different world.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people will misrepresent Star Wars as sci-fi.
Yeah.
It is
I mean,
fantasy.
one of the most brilliant things that Lucas did was at the very beginning of the film, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. We've seen it a million times. We love it. I mean, all the fan films use it, but the truth is what that does in terms of storytelling is it says, hey, we're going to go somewhere else. All of your rules don't matter, and we're going to play.
And as much as you love these characters, they're all dead now.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Wait,
yeah.
Is that what I was supposed to get
Well,
at? That's dark. That's the dark
I think that's the fable part.
Ah.
I think that's the once upon a time part, the
Yeah,
fairy
absolutely.
tale part. You know what I mean? But yeah, but I think it does reset it for us in terms of just watching it.
My favorite is still Star Wars. We'll get into that.
Nice.
So come on back to Countdown to 9 podcast, posting on the 15th of every month.
Yep.
The last show will post, the last show of this mini-series will post 5 days before the release of Episode 9, giving you our full preview.
Yep.
And besides these profiles of the past films, we'll keep you up to date with what's doing as the latest developments come out about Episode 9. Pretty soon we're going to get a title, then
Yep.
we're going to get a poster, then we're going to get a trailer.
I thought we were going to get a trailer at the Super Bowl. I'm still bummed
I know, but
about
without
that.
a title, though, I at the last minute balked at that. They said we're
Yeah.
not going to get anything.
Yeah.
They probably would want to release both
I'm always a
things
little
separately.
nervous about the titles because every time they release a title, I'm always like, okay.
The worst being, of course, Attack of the Clones, because they didn't attack and they're good guys. So we already know about some cast additions.
By the way, I love that movie, and we'll get into that too.
We already know cast additions. Kerry Russell is on board, and the current Oscar nominee Richard E. Grant, who's
Yep.
been great for years, and I would love to see whatever
Yep.
he's doing in this movie. Also, Chris Terrio is on board as a writer. Man, did he screw up the DC universe. But I'm still on board with him because of the Oscar he won for Argo, which I think is a great film.
Right.
So I think that's a good get for the Star Wars universe.
Well, also too, I mean, when you have a writer like that, you've got somebody who you hope is going to really ground the dialogue, is going to ground the story arcs, is going to really add some weight. I mean, that's been a lot of the complaints about this new trilogy from fans and things like that is, where's the arc? Why do I care about these characters? And I think that this film is really going to pay it off.
But you love The Last Jedi, and I think
did.
that blew the arc apart. Like, it's tough to have an arc when you pull the rug out from everything that was the previous movie's goals and missions.
Well, I think what The Last Jedi did was it reset the expectations. I think it turned everything on its head. I mean, we've talked about this before, but not here, but but
You don't want to listen to
you don't
a
want to listen to
5-hour
it. Yeah,
show.
no. But I mean, and we'll get into it in detail. But when I watched The Last Jedi, what I loved most about it really was the surprise, because as a filmmaker, as a storyteller myself, you get to a place where you start to expect things. Okay, page 10, this is going to happen, or here, here's this, and say, okay, now we're in Act 2, and everything starts to get really predictable. And I feel like what Rian Johnson did great was destroy that predictability for someone like me, because I remember sitting in the theater going, well, I just don't know what the hell's going to happen now. Because everything just literally changed, And there were so many surprises.
Now, Colin Trevorrow, of course, from Jurassic World, was booted from the project.
From the latest one, from episode 9.
The episode 9.
Yeah.
And a co-writer of his.
Right.
But they're still listed as co-writers, so whatever they started into, just taken over now by Terrio and J.J. Abrams to make what we're going to see.
Right.
So, I mean, I could give or take Jurassic World. I actually like Fallen Kingdom better than Jurassic World, even though most people tell you that's a giant hunk of junk. There's a movie that just like, screw it all, and they went and they did what I mean. The craziness that movie has, and how they stick every landing for the wacky choices they make. I was entertained.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah. What I'm interested in seeing, in terms of the delivery of this, I mean, there's so many things I'm interested in seeing, but traditionally for me, J.J. Abrams is a great setup guy. I think he's a brilliant filmmaker. Doesn't always get to the answer.
No.
And
It's almost like he runs away, like before he even cares about giving you the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was great. You guys got this. Bye. I'm going to make something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, I don't know him, but I feel like the sense I get from watching his work is that he likes the questions. He likes to pose the questions to the audience and things like that. And I think there's something about that and giving that task to the person who is used to just posing the questions. Now you have to answer them.
Yeah.
I actually think in some ways this is going to push him as a filmmaker. And so I'm excited to see, where he and how he delivers that.
Yeah, that's true. I
Yeah.
mean, he will be, You're right. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
He's got to give us some damn answers. Mr. Lost, Mr. Eddie, he's got to give us answers.
Which, by the way, I still love Lost. I still love Lost. I know a lot of people hate it, but I love it.
Yeah. So here's our pledge to you. Now that you know who we are and what we're doing, we're not going to come from a know-it-all place.
Yep.
So tune in. We don't know it. We know some stuff. We'll
Yeah.
share it with you. But we're like you. We love these movies. We hate these movies. We like some of these movies.
Yeah.
And our panels of guests will also have an array of perspectives and people who've direct history with the film.
Yeah,
A few
yeah,
people
yeah.
have made the news or worked on them, and
Yep.
we'll bring those in as well, hopefully. And if you followed the movie guys for any amount of time, you know that I'm also good for a solid helping of bits. So,
Yeah.
that always helps us try and bring you things that you're not going to get in any other podcast.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. There's about 30 podcasts out there blathering out about Star Wars every week.
Right,
So we're going
right.
to try and keep it unique with this pared down monthly show with unique content every time you tune in.
Yep.
So that's us, Paul Preston.
Sean Blodgett.
You get what we're about. Come on back monthly. We'll cover the Star Wars film franchise uniquely, deliver a few laughs. That's the 15th of every month. And once again, follow us at facebook.com/countdown-to-9, at countdown-to-9 on Twitter and Instagram, as well as iTunes, YouTube, and all that. Of course, themovieguys.net as well. And we cover all manner of movies there constantly every week. But you can head there now if you wanted to read about the latest Star Wars movies. We reviewed when they came out, The Last Jedi, Rogue One. And so just search Star Wars. In there, you'll find an article about Star Wars villains, podcast talk from the past, and my appearances on other podcasts talking about Star Wars.
Nice.
It never stops with the Star Wars talk. Do you think they'll go beyond 9, or will they just do standalones or kickstart a new?
No, I
trilogy?
think they're absolutely going to go beyond. I mean, whether or not Rian Johnson is going to get his trilogy, I don't know. I mean, I hope he does, to be honest, because I think he's an interesting filmmaker, and I think he got thrown under the bus pretty quickly for this, what he did in The Last Jedi. But I do think they're going to go on for sure. I mean, the truth is, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the behind the scenes of The Last Jedi at all, but
No.
It's a very interesting documentary compared to all of the other Star Wars documentaries because it actually has a bit of darkness to it in general. I mean, it's very artsy. But
like it's a Werner Herzog documentary about
I don't know
The Last
about that.
Jedi?
Yeah, I don't know about all that. But I mean, I think it was a little dark. But I think his intention really was, how do we continue this? Because once we wrap out the Skywalker saga, what do you have? And I think that is really at the heart of what he was trying to set up. Aside from being a part of the Skywalker saga films, I think he was trying to plant the seeds for the future.
And weren't the Game of Thrones creators brought in to do some movies too? We'll have to look at that as well.
Yes.
To do something. We got the Mandalorian television show coming out, which the
Yeah.
last thing I read about that was it's going to go back and feel like the original trilogy, which is interesting because are they answering the call that maybe people didn't like when they veered from the original feel?
I mean, I feel like that's where some of the problem comes in too. Is like, I think you can let go. I mean, that's what The Last Jedi is all about. I mean, it's about letting go. And I mean, honestly, I would like them to not continue to just make movies just about, that period of time right before Star Wars, the original film. I think it would be interesting to move forward. I mean, I have a lot of opinions about what, and we're going to get into it too, of like what we kind of wished things would have been. I personally think if they were doing 7, 8, and 9, they really did. I guess we're back in the show. But I really wish they would have gone a different direction. They did essentially. There's a phrase that's in the Hollywood Reporter, this Hollywood Reporter article I read called the requel, and people have maybe heard of it. But a requel is kind of a sequel. It's kind of a reimagining. It's it's kind of all of these things in one. And The Force Awakens, I think, is one of the greatest examples of a requel. It's a newer kind of idea, and that's exactly what it is. It's sort of a reimagining. It's sort of kind of just taking what people liked and putting it in there, and then it's sort of moving the story forward. And it's there's a lot of
lazy, maybe.
I think safe.
Okay. Well, yeah.
I think safe. And honestly, I think safe and smart. I mean, when you invest $4.08 billion in purchasing a company, you want to get some return. And, literally within that I think it was within the first year, they had surpassed, in terms of
the biggest movie of all time. They did
yeah.
right,
I mean,
they did something right.
But anyway, to my point, I think they went with this whole sort of, the same kind of thing, like with the stormtroopers and the sort of Nazi thing and all that stuff. I think it would have been really interesting if they would have reimagined all of that and went with a more terrorism kind of feel. That the First Order was this, like, the First Order was sort of more like what the rebels were, but they're evil, and so they're trying to put fear into people and trying to control the universe that way and get their power that way. And I don't know, it would have been interesting to see that kind of a rise. Of the evil. I don't know. That was just one of my ideas, which I did actually start originally. I did start writing in episode 7 when I first heard it was just for myself. And there was a part of me was like, maybe I could. And I'm like, come on, just stop.
Sean, we're going to pick that up in December.
I know.
So hold that thought.
I know. I'm going to hold it. I got so much to say.
But in the meantime, that's a wrap on episode 1. Well, not our coverage of episode 1.
No, because that's coming.
Month, but our first episode.
And we're going to talk about why episode 1 is a superbly important film.
I look forward to that. Until March, Sean, I love you.
I know.